Hello. Have you ever had a remote controller or a button on the back of a flashlight break on you? No worries. Happens all the time. But I'm here to teach you a technique that will help fix these certain situations for the most part. My name is Sam Clements, and the skill that I'll be showing you today is soldering. I was taught to solder by my father at first, but I also learned more in depth on my job on the Air Force. I do it quite often, to be honest. But today I'm going to explain what soldering is, simple materials needed for basic soldering, and finally I'm going to show you how to tin a wire. Soldering is when you join two things together with solder, whether it be metal, wires, and maybe circuit boards if you want to melt the plastic. Getting off topic, but mostly is used for wires. One type of soldering is done on circuit boards through the actual board itself. You have diodes and resistors who let little tail end wires you stick through, bend it, and you'll solder them onto the board. Another type of soldering is called tinning a wire, and that's what I'm going to be showing you today. But tinning the wire is when you have a braided wire that you apply solder to first to give it more rigid and stronger structure to it. This leads me to my next point. I'm going to show you how to tin a wire. Now, some of the basic materials you're going to need for tinning a wire are, first off, a soldering iron. Next, you'll need some solder. Third, you'll need some wire to solder. This is braided wire, 16 gauge. Now I have this side split and this side together, and I'll explain why in a second. And then lastly, you need a wet sponge, and you could also use something called flux. There's two different types of flux. I don't have any with me to show you, but one type is a petroleum base, which is more like a paste, which I think is better. And then you actually have a liquid that you need a little brush to brush onto the wire or dip your wire into it. Either way, they have the same purpose. It allows the solder to adhere to the wire better, kind of like the same flux you would use for copper pipe soldering, which you'll use a blowtorch and a different type of solder, but same thing. Now let's get started. To save some time, I've already plugged in my soldering iron to get hot, and it's pretty hot. Usually they run anywhere between 500 to 700 degrees, and you have some that are adjustable. They go even hotter. Based off of the type of solder you have, they have different types of melting points. So that's heated up already. Next, we got a wire. Also to save time, I already pre-stripped it, but just to demonstrate, it's not that hard. You have strippers. This is 14 gauge wire. Go to the 14 spot, clamp down, and you'll pull. And then you go like that. Since this is braided wire, the strands are everywhere, so I like to take it and twist them together to make it easier to solder. Okay, wire stripped. Next, we're going to take some solder. Just put it on the tip of your iron, and this will allow your iron to not burn and to have a cleaner soldering joint when you're ready for it. Then you can take this to cool it off onto your wet sponge. As you can see, it made the tip nice and shiny versus black. That's what you want. All right, let's get down to it. We're gonna do the two separate wires first. So you can apply a little bit more here, just to get a little bit on your tip. You're gonna take the solder, hold it to the wire, and apply the heat. Do this one too. It smells a little bit, but you'll get used to it. As you can see, the solder is on the wire. Sorry, it's not focusing in, but you can see it shine a little bit. And then you can do the same thing to the other side, which you can combine 2 wires into one, giving it 1 point. Now, you have conjoined and separate wires. So if you wanted to, you can take this and try to split it, and you're stuck in the middle. Now let's review. And today I've talked to you what soldering is, 2 different ways of soldering, and to use this technique, some of the common materials that you will need, and lastly, I showed you how to tin the wire. Hopefully this was informational to you, and hopefully you learned something. If you have any more questions, please write me, let me know. And this concludes my tutorial. Thank you.